There's a lot to be said about the credit/financial crisis that's going around the globe today. And I've got a lot I'd like to say about it. But in this video, I want to focus on one aspect of it. And that is this myth that's going around that one of the main reasons for this serious, serious problem is the fact that in the United States we have a lack of regulation and oversight from the government. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm sorry, and I'll prove it to you. A lot of the proponents of such a myth are talking about the Glass-Steagall Act, the separation of commercial banking from investment banking, and that these lax regulations has led to this disaster. If that's true, then explain to me why this disaster occurred in this country. That when you compare our regulatory bodies, when you compare the size and the scope of the government intervention, the government regulations, the government oversight, when you compare it to any other developed nation on earth, nobody comes close to us in the level of regulations and so on. So if it's true that our lack of regulation is the cause, then why doesn't this happen, or why didn't this happen first much sooner in some other nation that doesn't have any regulations, or doesn't have anywhere near the same regulations that we do? Far less regulation. The truth of the matter is, the very truth of the matter is, that the subprime mortgage market, which of course was the straw that broke the camel's back. We can go on forever about living beyond your means and the fact that the government the United States has been a debtor nation for so many years. Certainly all that is part of the problem, a big part of the problem. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the subprime mortgage market. And that was brought on through the Community Reinvestment Act and through and also pushed by an organization called Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, or the acronym ACORN. And certainly the whole thing behind that was a noble cause to try to make housing affordable for low-income families, minorities, and so on. So there's an old saying, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. But here are officials, for political reasons, probably most likely. I doubt that they were that compassionate for the poor, but for political reasons, they pushed this agenda and pushed it with a complete irresponsible, in an irresponsible manner, which they were warned not to do it. And so basically, this whole idea of lending money to people to buy homes that couldn't afford them was driven by the government. The banks and the security firms were pushed into it, kicking and screaming. Now, to be fair, certainly once they got in it, and due to the fact that home prices kept going up, they were making a bundle on it. They liked it. They were forced to start eating it, but once it started tasting good, heck, they weren't going to complain. So yes, Wall Street is culpable. But this myth that to stop this from happening again, we need more government oversight, more government regulations, and so on, is absolute nonsense. What we need is government accountability. Not just for the elected officials, but for appointed officials, for the bureaucrats, for middle management. In the private sector, we have accountability. Sarbanes-Oxley forces publicly traded corporations to basically certify their balance sheets, to recognize that if there is any malfeasance, if there's any fraud, if there's any negligence, that they're going to be held accountable, which means they're going to lose their jobs. No big bailouts. They're going to go to jail, and so on. We need that for our government. We need to hold our government accountable. Our government is held to no standard whatsoever, and that just blows me away. So if we really want to fix this for the future, now there's no quick fix, folks. Believe me, the bailout is just a Band-Aid. It's like an alcoholic who's had a problem for many, many years and is now just, has a major hangover and can't think straight. So opening up the refrigerator and taking another beer or two to just get their mind straight, they figure out where they go from here. We should check ourselves into the Betty Ford Clinic is what we should do. So it's going to be a long, drawn-out thing. But I hope and pray that this doesn't come out to be, more government, more regulation, more oversight. It's nonsense. If we held our government accountable, if we held the organizations that are responsible currently for overseeing the financial sector, the SEC, FINRA, if they were held accountable, we could have a much cleaner industry, and we would need 1/10 the amount of bureaucrats to monitor the system, because they would know, hey, something like this happens, I'm culpable. I am not only culpable, I'm accountable, and I may go to jail. I may lose my job, I may be fined. Believe me, this kind of stuff wouldn't happen. We could do away with a lot of bureaucracy. We could do away with a lot of government. All we got to do is hold them accountable. It's disgusting. I could go on and on. Look at FEMA, $8 billion a year budget, and Katrina hits. I was in Switzerland at the time with friends and family, Swiss people. I was embarrassed sitting there watching this hurricane hit New Orleans, and there we were, a day after the hurricane or whatever. Sun shining, blue skies. People are in dire straits, dying of thirst. Can't get out. FEMA's nowhere to be found. If a private corporation had been responsible for that, there would be some accountability. There would be some repercussions. There would be firings, jail sentences, so on and so forth. What happens with FEMA? I think the guy that runs FEMA was promoted to Homeland Security or something. I think in some cases, some of the things our government gets away with, things they do, these are just people, folks. And the reason they get away with it is because we just don't hold their feet to the fire. In one exception was, maybe some of you are aware of the situation that happened at Duke University with the 3 lacrosse players that were accused of rape. And Mike Nifong, who happened to be running for office, saw it in his political best interest to ignore evidence. The malfeasance that went on by that man is just extraordinary. And you know what? He would have gotten away with it had it not been for 60 Minutes that exposed him for what he is. And even then, seeing what this guy did, he was ready to put 3 young men to prison for the rest of their lives, perhaps, who he knew there was evidence out there that not only exonerated them, but also strongly suggested that no crime was ever committed, was prepared to send these men to prison for the rest of their lives for his own political gain. Now, I don't know about you, but I think what ended up happening with him is he lost his license to practice law. The guy should go to jail, maybe for 20, 30 years, so he can think about what he did. Anyway, bottom line is, folks, more regulation, more oversight, more government is not the answer. It is accountability is the answer when it comes to what we should do with overseeing our financial services sector.